Hello. Thanks for joining me on another video for Asunder. World of Saga 3 Asunder, which will be coming out this coming Saturday. So I thought it'd be good to basically get online and do the last of these videos for now. I will be doing Shardland pretty soon. But for now, just sticking with Asunder, since that's the setting we're going to be in for the next campaign, next game. Give me a second, I'm just going to drink some tea. I bought Twinings today, which was so nice. Okay, so the Asunder. This one's going to be a much more chilled out version of the guide that I've been doing over the past couple of years. Couple of weeks. So, pretty much, the Asunder, as I discussed last time, they are the most northern power of the world of Saga, by a long way. They are the highest power in the world. Highest as in position, not highest as in they are the best. This is an Asunder city you're looking at right now, or the concept that I found that would match an Asunder city, or township, in the vast deserts, because in the north of the world of Saga, the further north you go, the hotter it gets, the further south you go, the colder it gets. So it's, you know, a bit different to other fantasy settings you may have come across. And the north is basically permeated by several city-states that are dotting inland lakes in the Great World's Edge Desert. And the World's Edge Desert is a nearly limitless desert that goes far into the unknown, really. Like there's parts of the desert that aren't even mapped. But right now I want to show you this, which is the map we looked at last time. As you can see, that's the eastern continent, the Mist continent. And you have Keldanian in the west, which we've covered in past videos. You have the Endless Ocean in the east, and to the north is Asunder, which is what we're going to talk about right now. Now, as I mentioned to you last time, in fact, I'll put that on. Actually, I will. Give me 1 second, and I will get that as a little thing for you. Just 1 second. You have to forgive me, this is the first time I've had to do this in these videos, so I've not done too badly. Keldanian presentation, and there we go. So this is the west, and you can see, Keldanian here, and you can see Gensen and Menshai in the east here. That's the start of the Mist continent, and you see Keldanian and Vanlandreath. To the top right here, you can see the Asunder. Now, their territory is literally from where the deserts start and the Binding Wastes finish. That's literally where they start, and they go all the way up into the northeast there, all the way up. And because Keldanian, Vanlandreath, and the Asunder are all one continent. So then, when you look at this map, this map, you can see the east is here, starts here, in the westmost part there, and moves across. And in the north is Asunder. The first place of Asunder you come to is the place called Saga. Saga, or Saida, as some people call it, is a huge city-state on an island in the middle of the steaming seas. And it is basically the administrative centre of the empire, because it's between Gensen and Asunder. So Asunder itself, we only have one map of it, and this is it. And as you can see, there's a Saida at the bottom there. And there are lots of different places in Asunder. So these are the northern wastes, the northern deserts, at least the parts that can be mapped. There is a lot more above this map, as in, you can see at the top of the map there, it says north to Asunder City. So that's the city-state that actually birthed the Asunder Empire as it is today. And there are several different trading cities, so Geskar, Vissal, Fenadel at the bottom there, Ven's Reach, all trading cities. And of course Saga itself is there. So the lands themselves, which I wanted to look at, are actually vicious wastes. They are vicious deserts that are populated by hardy people, who you may recognise as historically ancient, medieval Mongolians. This person is not in Mongolian armour, but she is dressed in what I would think is the garb of the Asunder. So the Asunder are a race of people who are almost totally indebted to the saddle. You know, they love riding, and they ride ponies. They don't ride horses. But Asunder ponies are actually the size of horses, so there's not really much difference. The only difference is they're much more hardy, much more tough, and much more reliant on water, and much less reliant, on water, which means they can survive in the northern deserts. So, I think I'll read a bit of lore from the guide here. The Asunder are a race of people from what is known as the edge of the world, or the crown of the world, the vast expanse of the world's edge, or the world's end desert, and its miracle cities, the 12 oasis cities of the unknown north. To the rest of the world, the deserts of the north across the Brimstone Ocean are a myth. However, in the year 2567 of the Shattered Age, though quite recently, this myth became an all-too-real nightmare for the citizens of Gensen. The Asunder are from the city of the same name, at least their original founders are. The 12 oases of the world's end desert, or the world's edge desert, are mighty inland seas that are refilled during the precious rain months of the expanse, and around each of these, the wandering tribes of warriors came to found cities, the nomadic life simply being made possible by the constant beating of the northern sun. Asunder was one of these cities, and little is known of the original founding of the oasis cities, as the people of this desert do not value history quite as much as those of other cultures. The people of the world's edge desert live in the moment, and are a no-nonsense to-the-point race of tribal warriors. For thousands of years, the cities of the northern deserts fought against one another, with alliances constantly shifting. The cities here became some of the largest in the known world, as everyone born upon these vast expanses simply had to live within them. In the year 2540 of the Shattered Age, however, the fate of this remote region of the world would be thrown open to the rest of Saga. Akiera Akerod was a member of the aristocracy of Asunder, under the Asunder king Atem. He was also a master manipulator. Within 3 years of assuming the seat of his family, he had bribed, coerced, or intimidated his way to the right hand of the king as his greatest general and advisor. Soon, Atem had drowned mysteriously, however, in the timeless sea that Asunder sits on, and Akiera mustered his supporters who crowned him Asunder king. Akiera would lead a campaign against Southron, the weakest of his enemies, and annihilate them in open combat. He would lead its armies with his own in conquering and assimilating them, and assimilating another 5 city-states, making his intentions perfectly clear to the rest of the world's edge desert. And the Sunburst War, as it came to be known, would see 6 cities fight against his new allies. The greatest of his enemies being the grand city of Temen, which sat in the centre of the desert upon the most fertile of its sea's deltas. For 10 years, Akiera campaigned across the great deserts of his home upon the back of his Kraid mount, a ferocious lion-like predator that can be tamed to ride if it is reared from birth with its master and lives just as long as him. Eventually, he subjugated the city of Temen, taking its great monument and half burying it in the sands as a glowering warning to the rest. This monument, known as the Kurontar, rumbles to this day with encased binding energy. After consolidating the 12 cities under his rule, Akiera forces each to pay him tribute and sign the Asunder Pact, effectively making the World's Edge Desert a single state, before living in peace for a number of years to let their wounds heal. No one dared challenge him or his military might, and in the year 2560 of the Shattered Age, he began preparing a vast fleet to take his armies across the seas to find new conquests. Warriors were brought from all over the deserts and actually fought in honor tournaments to be allowed to sail in the first wave of the invasion with Akiera himself. The first wave set sail in the fateful year of 2567 of the Shattered Age, and the last Moon Wars, as they are now known, will begin with their landing in Gensen, as we covered last time. The Asunder are a warlike people. They believe in honour and justice, but do not hold that they need rules or a justice of law to make such things happen. They hold to their own oaths of self-discipline, and in this, they are not dissimilar from those in Gensen. Proficiency with the blade, bow and horse is everything to the Asunder, who value their steeds as much as they do their children, for each was precious in the vast deserts. The beating of the sun in the northern reaches has given the Asunder a grim and black-humoured outlook on life. Their sense of humour can be rugged and biting at times, but the Asunder are quick to warm to any who can prove their worth, and refuse to show pain or fear. Even conquered folk who have become slaves have won places of honour in the Asunder battle lines, for their sheer determination not to give in. The Asunder are masters at making such people feel like they belong. Any person within the world can be named an Asunder, which means they are protected from anyone not of the people. Anyone can prove their worth to an Asunder in any number of ways, and whilst they are brash and at times confrontational, they are also respectful of strength and loyal to a fault. The lands of Gensen are prospering, despite the bloodshed of the as the Asunder are content to let the Gensen rule themselves. Even under the new Asunder Empire, Menshai remains the likely next target for the Asunder, and a recent incursion by the forces of the Northern Empire was barely turned back by mercenary armies led by by an exiled throne heir of the Great Kael'din Micaiah Vale. The Asunder do not see the world as as their birthright. They do not give themselves titles. They see the world as an opportunity, and not that no one has had the temerity to crack yet. Their armies are vast, and each day grow ever bolder. The Asunder put no stock in religion or art or history or science. They are warriors first and foremost, and form the upper echelons of the states they conquer, letting the rest continue as normal. As such, this means that the will of their enemies is quickly overcome when they realise the Asunder have come simply to remove their leaders, rather than raise their taxes and rape their relatives. They treat their old religions, referred to as the old ways, with thinly veiled disdain. The deserts of their home have beaten such tales out of them. The Asunder, when approaching a city, lay siege to it. On the first day, they raise a huge white tent in front of it. If the city surrenders on this day, no one will be harmed. Only the rulers of the city will be given the choice of working under the Asunder and being left in peace, or being executed. On the second day, a pink tent is raised, indicating that if the city surrenders now, only the ruling class will be killed. On the third day, a red tent is raised, meaning that if the city surrenders, then all the adult males of the city will be slaughtered. On the fourth day, a black tent is raised, meaning that every living thing within the city will be exterminated. On the fifth day, this order is carried out. This is how simple the Asunder are as a race. Simple enough for the entire world to understand. The Asunder, to the rest of the world, resemble the phantom horsemen who haunt the nightmares of human beings, and it is known that Akiera Akerod was known to call himself the Herald of the Horsemen. No formal religion exists today in Asunder, however. The colours of the Asunder are sunburst orange and black. These are plastered to every banner, piece of armour and mountain hull of the Asunder armies as they march, making them a blistering force to behold. They are one of the most mobile and versatile fighting forces in the world, able to stream around an opponent before melting away again just as quickly. Their archers are highly accurate from foot or horseback, and unlike all the other powers of the world, are just as heavily armoured and battle-hardened as the regular foot swordsmen and spearmen. Simply put, the world of Saga has seen nothing quite like the storm that has come out of the Brimstone Ocean, that the Asunder now referred to as Kuron Katai, or Our Sea. This race of people have come to view the entire world as something that needs peace brought to it by the sword. In their opinion, the squabbling kings and meddling emperors shall be put to the sword to make way for a simpler and calmer world where under one banner of the burning sun. So that's pretty much what the Asunder are. The reason why there isn't as much to say about them as there are of other races in the world, or other states in the world, is because they are that simple. They've only just, these days, made up their own state. They've only just, Akiera Kerod is still alive at this moment in time. He's an elderly man, he's approaching 80 years of age, but he's still alive. So, the conquests of Gensen happened relatively recently and are still very fresh in the minds of many. Even though Gensen is also a land of extremes, is Gensen. Just like the Asunder, they win or they lose together as a unit and as a people. And so when Gensen lost the war, yes, there was a lot of resentment and there was a lot of rebellions cropping up, but very soon, once they were quashed, the Gensen were right on board with the Asunder. So even though there's still resentment and racial tension and even hatred there at some stage, there are a lot in Gensen who are becoming very comfortable with the Asunder taking over, because quite frankly, the Asunder are the new power in Saga, and they're probably one of, if not the most powerful army in Saga at the moment. Their cities, as you can see here, this is one on the coast, Visal, this is called, are actually very prosperous, and they are vast trading complexes. The Asunder are all about trade, they're all about commerce, and they're all about making sure the world is put to rights and everybody has the right to live and work and die in peace. And if they're not allowed to do that, then the Asunder will come down on whoever's riding against them hard. So the Asunder, they have no middle ground. You're with them or you're against them, and they feel that this is a very simple way and outlook on life. As I said, the Asunder are very simple. They don't have any courts, really. They don't have any formal laws. You make your own laws. You choose to act as you choose to act, and if you're making trouble in Asunderland, you will become a cropper of a harsh death pretty quickly. So everybody keeps everybody else honest. It's a very fragile system, but it's a system that works because, as I said, the Asunder have no middle ground. If you commit a crime, the likelihood is you'll pay for it with your life. There aren't many jails in the Asunderlands. In fact, I can't really think of one jail in lands of the Asunder. They are hard and hardy people, and when they raced down from the north to take over Gensen, they did so without quibble and without any holding back. And as we discussed in the last video, that war, the last Moon Wars between Akiera Kerod and the Gensen were extremely bloody, and only ended with the complete annihilation of Kairu, which is one of the biggest city centres in the world, and they killed everyone in that city. But as I say, the Asunder, if you're living under the Asunder, they may seem like a very fair and reasonable rulers. They would seem that way, and indeed they are. They're very fair. The corruption is almost non-existent, because if you're caught, you're just killed. But there is no jail. There is no, they don't tell you to pay a fine or anything like that. They just kill you. Because any money that you take from the state or from people who are governing the state for yourself, well, you're taking that from Akiera Kerod, and he is not very forgiving of such disloyalty, to be honest with you. This is another city that sits on the coast. I think this is called Venuskar, and or is it called Venuskar? Let's have a little look-see. No, it's called Vensreach. Vensreach, it's called. So this is Vensreach. This is another of the main port cities along the southern coast. The southern coast of the northern Asunder lands. And as I said, Asunder is the north of the world. It's very far from anywhere else, and there's really no way for people from Kildanian or Valenreath to get to it, because you'd have to cross the Binding Waste, which is near Suicide. You could certainly sail to the Asunder lands, but for ages a lot of people thought that there was nothing there of note. You know, there were trading cities up there. Certainly, there were trading cities in the Asunder lands. There were people who were very hardy in the Asunder lands, but they never really made contact with anybody outside, except to trade every now and again. That was it, really. Not until until Akiera Akerod created the Asunder Pact and conquered Gensen. This is their first real introduction to the rest of the world. You know, and he's a remarkable man, and as I say, he's still alive now. He will be alive when we do the campaign. He is the ruler of the Asunder, and he is the current ruler of Gensen. He's termed the Crown Prince of Gensen, as every ruler of Gensen is, even Sarpedon when he was over there. And he is the Empire of the Asunder, the Emperor of the Asunder Empire. There's not much more to say, because the Asunder are that simple. They don't really have a religion anymore. They used to. They used to have a religion that was quite similar to a mix between the Quench Lord, which is in the east, and the Guardian Beasts, which are in Kildanian. They had a mixture of those two religions. But they soon left them behind because, well, when you're in the desert and you're just eking out, trying to survive, religious ceremony is like the last thing on your mind. You know, you're trying to survive against enemies, other clans, other people, the elements, wildlife, everything. But the one thing that the Northern World's Edge deserts have tempered, it is this group of powerful, determined, simple, to the point, black and white warriors. That's what the Asunder are. You know, there is no grey, there is no middle ground. And if you're on the right side of that middle ground, then hey, you know, you'll be paid well. If you're not, then they'll destroy you. This is an Asunder binding user. The binding has complete freedom in Asunder lands. It's quite rare though in Asunder lands because the binding isn't very strong here. Yeah, the binding waste. There are theories out there that the binding waste that you saw on the map earlier on between Kildanian and Asunder actually sap the binding away from the north here. Or there are theories that it even poisons the land, that the very binding poisons the land. As you can see on the map, as I said before. And you can see there, you know, the binding wastes. You know, there are theories that binding wastes actually pull the binding from the north and send it south. You know, but these are only theories. Only theories. So yeah, the inspiration for the Asunder is obviously Mongolia, medieval Mongolia. One of my favourite, civilizations from medieval times. Very interesting culture. Even today, I'd love to go to Mongolia at some point and ride and go and see the steppes. I think it's a wonderful place to go and visit. And the Asunder, even though it doesn't look like Mongolia, Mongolia does not look like, the world's edge deserts, because there's only the Gobi Desert there. There's not really any other desert in Mongolia. And most of it is tundra. So if you've ever played Skyrim and you've gone on the greener parts of Skyrim, that's essentially what it looks like. Especially if you run outside Whiterun and all that, that's essentially Mongolia, what it looks like. Whereas, the Asunder obviously live in a very hot, very arid, very desert place. That's where they live. That's where they are. So yeah, the Mongolians are the cultural inspiration for the Asunder, if not the actual inspiration of the Asunder. The Asunder are very much my own creation. They have a lot of things in there that aren't Mongolian at all. Their outlook is, though. Their outlook definitely is, and the way they conquer cities is. And they're one of my favourite races in Saga. They're actually my pet thing, is the Asunder. I really love them, which is why they're doing so well in the setting at the moment. Because I've always liked the idea of instead of like having the Darkspawn or Orcs or something like that threatening the rest of the world, what if it's actually the Asunder? And the reason why they're so terrifying, one, yes, it's black and white. Two, yes, they do have a lot of warriors. Three, they're very capable on the battlefield. And two, and four, probably the biggest reason is that he's actually quite tempting to join them. You can see where they're coming from. Like with the Darkspawn and the Orcs and things like that, you really can't see where they're coming from. You're just like, you just want to destroy the world, assholes. Well, these guys just want to put an end to the bullshit, basically. They don't really do conquest. They just see the rest. They don't really see the rest of the world as their birthright. They just see, hey, there's stuff over there. Let's go take it. Let's go take all of that stuff, and all of those squabbling kings and emperors and all that. Yeah, we can put an end to all that. Bollocks to that. Let's just bring everyone under the one rule, and everyone can just get on with it. This is another carving that is in you're going very far north now. I mean, the further you go north into Asunderlands, the more arid, the more remote it gets. And this would be even past Temen, which we saw on the map before. So if you see Temen at the top of the map there, it's near Asunder. This is near Asunder. It's called the Approach, which will be in the campaign. But it's called the Approach, and these are actually representations of gods from the old ways. These are two gods from the old ways of the Asunder. But I think there's not really much else to say about the Asunder. They are a race of warriors, more than capable in the saddle, who have come south like a tide in recent years. And this is where we'll be starting the campaign, is in Asunderlands. That's why we've called the campaign Asunder. And it's going to be very, very, very fun, because this is not the kind of culture that we've explored before. And it's not the kind of culture that I've seen explored in any fantasy setting, to be honest with you. Even in Dragon Age, I think their equivalent would probably be the Canary. You've never been to Canary Lands, and we probably won't ever go to Canary Lands, because they're not brave enough to do something like that. You're going to stay in the boring south all the time, and in basically medieval Europe, dealing with shit. Whereas, instead of actually making medieval Europe in their world look like medieval Europe, so it looks familiar, they've actually tried to inject a lot of exotic things into what would be medieval Europe, which doesn't work. It doesn't look right. Whereas in Saga, medieval Europe, as in Kildanian, looks like that. A mix. If you're going to mix the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire and the Greek Empire, Valenreath looks like that. It looks like that, how that would look. And the Asunderlands are the most exotic and the most out there places in the setting, along with the most remote parts of Menshai and Gensen, and we're going to see all of that in the coming campaign. So thank you very much for watching. I will be back with the Shardlanders, with Shardland, the bunch of Cthulhu worshipping Vikings who are slightly mental. We will be back with that eventually, but for now I think we're more than ready to carry on and continue with the campaign and start the campaign this coming Saturday, which would be the... what date would it be? The 22nd. So I'll see you then. And this is me signing off. And I will speak to you all a little bit later on.